Hi, good morning, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Natalie Unwin-Kuruneri, and I'm Senior Director of Academic Initiatives here at the Climate School. First, I want to congratulate you all on being accepted into the Climate Society program. It's a great accomplishment, and it's an important time to be studying climate, as you all know, having made an application here. And you will be joining an amazing community of students, both in the Climate Society program, but also more broadly at Columbia University. So I'm joined today by 5 current students who represent a variety of backgrounds that you can expect to see within the program. They're here to share their experiences in the program as students and to answer questions that you might have about the curriculum and what it's like to be in the program. So as you're going to hear, there's no one profile of a student. They come from different undergraduate degrees, different professional backgrounds, and sectors. But everyone shares a common desire to gain the knowledge and tools to affect change and solutions to the climate crisis and to address the very real impacts of climate change that are happening right now. So I'm going to briefly introduce each panelist, and I'll pose a few starter questions, and then we'll open it up to you all. We want to make sure that you have ample time to get your questions answered. So here we have Aesha Datta. Aesha is an international student from India and a current Fulbright Fellow. She brings over 12 years of professional experience as a journalist and has covered a variety of stories relating to environmental policy and the climate crises. She entered the program to further study the impacts of climate change from a scientific and social science lens and to further enhance her journalistic coverage. Next to her, we have Victoria Hamilton. Victoria is a recent graduate of Villanova University. She's conducted research relating to environmental impacts with minority communities, and her goal is to work in environmental policy and communicate effectively with different constituents to affect change. She also has a deep commitment towards Native American and Indigenous peoples' environmental justice and is a member of the Montaukett tribe in New York. Next to Victoria, we have Johan Lopez. He is a first-generation immigrant, having grown up in Colombia and the United States. He graduated from Georgetown University and brings several years of experience in both the private and public sectors in various climate-related initiatives. He's passionate about sustainability and believes the climate crises must be addressed by stakeholders with diverse perspectives and lived experiences. And he recently joined Morgan Stanley Global Sustainability Office as the Director of Partnerships and Capacity Building within the Institute for Sustainable Investing. So he's not busy at all being a full-time student and working full-time. Next to him, we have Samuel Levine. Samuel is a recent graduate of Dickinson College. While at Dickinson, he served as a climate action analyst for Dickinson College, the city of Carlisle, and Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. He has a passion for environmental justice as well and is interested in expanding his expertise with local action and climate planning. He ultimately hopes to enter public policy and guide local communities in reducing carbon emissions while enhancing economic growth. And then finally, we have Adam Stickney. Adam served in the United States Air Force for 7 years as a technical sergeant. Following his service in the military, he enrolled in Community College of San Francisco, where he served as student leader on the Sustainability Committee. He ultimately graduated from the University of California, Berkeley. He has a deep interest in the complex relationship between the natural and social sciences as they relate to environmental policy and hopes to transition to a local policy role at the state level or NGO. So welcome to all the panelists, and I will start with a softball for you all. Maybe we'll start over here with Aesha. Can you share with us your undergraduate educational background? So what did you study, and where were you based prior to entering the Climate Society program?
Oh, I come from a surprising background. I did my undergraduate in English literature. Then I did a master's in journalism. I worked as a journalist for 13 years, primarily as a climate journalist back home in India. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So I graduated from Villanova last May, majoring in environmental science and geography. I got really involved with research my junior year, focusing mainly on environmental justice causes in the Philadelphia area. And I'm from California, so West Coast represent.
Hello, everyone. I graduated from Georgetown with a degree in liberal arts and concentration in public policy, and I was in Washington, D.C. before moving here for the program.
Hi, everybody. I went to Dickinson College. I studied history and political science. I'm from suburbs of D.C. before that.
Hey, everyone. So I was at Berkeley before this. I just graduated. And then before that, I was at Community College of San Francisco. Before that, I was in the Air Force, but grew up in England.
And what did you what was your major at?
Oh yeah, my major was environmentally orientated. Mine was society and environment, so sort of similar. But then I just decided to go more into the climate realm from here.
Thank you. And then I think everyone, has a climate story in sense of like what gives you, why are you passionate about this and why did you come to study this here at Columbia? So we'd love to hear a little bit more about your climate story and what really motivated you to choose this program and come here. So Aesha, well, maybe we'll switch it up. We'll start maybe with Adam first and come back around this way.
So yeah, I guess I always wanted to do something that I found like meaningful and like that I was passionate about. And I realized the military was not it for me. Like one day I woke up and like Trump was my boss, and I'm like, no, I don't want this. And same reason why I'm a little bit skeptical about joining the EPA, but we can talk about that later. So anyway, I left the military to go to school, and I started, I wasn't sure what I wanted. I was actually like changed my major a few times, but as soon as I started doing environmental classes, I knew immediately like, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. I always loved the environment, but I didn't know like how bad of a state it was in. And that was kind of like how I started getting into environmental studies, and then that's what I majored in at Berkeley, and then that's why I wanted to come here for the climate.
I have a pretty, in some ways, pretty similar perspective. Definitely want to do something meaningful, definitely care a lot about the environment, but also it's the justice issue, given, some people are profiting from something that's, violating the bodily integrity of millions of others. And then, coming here, I just think that, like, this program is kind of like a focal point of, like, global, or especially, like, New York climate action, but then New York climate action is kind of like a focal point for, like, global climate action. So, like, this is kind of, like, one of the best resource places, so something pretty cool, yeah.
So growing up in Colombia, I got to see the real impact of climate change in the global south and understanding a little bit more of how climate is impacting the least favored communities in the world. And then I was lucky enough to have my first job out of college at a multilateral bank where I was working in capital markets as an assistant, because I was not a financier. I did not understand what was going on with bonds and all that, but I was basically managing budgets and contracts. But I was very lucky that I got to work with green finance, the green finance team, and that's how I started getting involved into this, to the point that I was there for 6 years, making my way up and end up being a project manager. But that's how I make the intersection and make the connection of like investing and mobilizing resources towards climate impact and social impact projects.
Yeah, so growing up as someone who is half Native, I was already raised with this appreciation for nature and this idea of like stewardship and like wanting to protect it. And so when I went into undergrad, I knew I wanted to do environmental science and like study the best ways to protect the earth and sustainability studies. And then when I started doing research is when when I started diving into the environmental justice and social justice part of the climate change movement, which isn't really, now it's getting like a lot more, now it's like more in the spotlight and it's being talked about, but like 4 years ago, it definitely wasn't. And so then I began to, a lot of my undergrad education was mainly working in labs and like providing the data that supports that there is this inequality in the fight against climate change. But I was really lacking the like social intersectionality perspective, which is why I applied to Columbia and I came to this program.
So I always knew I wanted to work in the climate environment space. No, actually it was called global warming. That's how you know I'm old. Back then. I think I knew I wanted to work in the environment/climate/global warming space since I was in school. I just did not know how. At some point I figured that I can write, so I became a journalist, and I wanted to continue to work in the developmental journalism, environmental journalism kind of space, and which I did, which puts me at the forefront of a lot of climate impacts. And like Johan, I had the privilege of, or otherwise, I think you can see it both ways, but we come from countries where these impacts have been felt for more than 2 decades, at the least, if not more than that, which puts it into perspective. It leads to a lot of frustration, anger even, and I wanted to, and the space is evolving so fast that I felt like I needed to take a beat, take a step back and study a little bit more. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Thank you. So the curriculum and cross-registration is a popular topic for admitted students. Can you tell us a little bit about the electives that you've taken and which have been your favorite so far? And Aesha will kick it back this way.
Okay, right. We can do a ping pong.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
So actually, my favorite elective is the one I'm taking this semester. It's climate change law and policy. It's brilliant. It's at the law school. So it's very tough, but I recommend it to everybody. You'll kill yourself, but do it. It's really great. And I love the idea of being able to design your own curriculum, your own education the way you would like to, which has given me the opportunity to take a class in the law, take a class with the international school, international relations. So I was doing a course on political context of environmental management, interesting course. And I'm doing one on communications this year. So yeah, it's been quite interesting that way.
A lot of my electives have been environmental justice, climate justice focused, and I would say one of my favorite ones that I'm taking right now is in the Mailman School of Public Health, and it's called, sorry, it's a mouthful, Plant Biology, Food Security, and Climate Change. And so this is like, I have an interest in environmental health because that falls under the environmental justice umbrella along with a bunch of other problems, but like I don't want to become a doctor. A lot of the chemistry I don't really understand, even though I've studied it for like 2 years. So this class is like really great because not only are you just learning basics of like plant bio, how climate change is affecting that, but you're having that human element where it's like, okay, well now which parts of the world are going to be most affected because they can no longer farm this crop, and like what can they do to move on, and like how can traditional ecological knowledge, which is rooted in indigenous thought, be a pathway to move forward. And you're also diving into like the politics behind the agricultural lobby in DC, which is something that I haven't had a class before that had solely focused on that. So learning a lot in that class.
So when I was looking for my grad program, I wanted to get more of the science part behind climate. I've been working in climate for 6 years by the time, and I was trying to understand more what the IPCC report is about. So that's when I found this program, but I also wanted to have a program that will let me go into other areas of my interest. My area is more business and finance, and that's what I've been doing, so I wanted to do that. I took banking for development with SIPA. And this semester, I'm taking accounting for development, accounting for climate, I think is the name, reporting and ESG alignment. And something I will tell you is that do not give up on electives. They fill up super quickly. Just show up to the class, back to the professor, be insistent because it can get complicated. And I've been in the waiting list number 15, and I just pushed myself through and made it. I don't know if this is allowed to say, but push for it. Because like if you have interest in one elective, that's what's gonna make your degree more interesting and more engaging. You're gonna also align with people who think like you, who want to do things like you, and the connections. Somebody was asking about taking electives as part of your career projection. I will say, if you're looking for a name for a PhD recommendation, if you're looking for a name my professor was the VP at the World Bank for risk. So those connections matter as well, and I will say push for it.
I definitely want to echo what Aesha was saying. The climate change law and policy course is pretty extraordinary. The professor is incredible. I also took a class last semester. It was called Equity, Policy, and Sustainability. And it really went into depth about the intersection of climate change and redlining and how communities that have suffered from redlining suffer disproportionate climate impacts. So I thought that was a really valuable class as well.
And yeah, echoing again, I'm also in the law class, and it's a really cool class. It is in the law department, which I think is, the law school, sorry, which is sort of cool that we're able to do that. We can go to like most schools, if not all of the schools in this at Columbia. Last semester, I took an interesting class, and they actually don't offer it anymore, but maybe I'll let you know like what it was, just to give you an idea of like how much of a breadth you can take with your classes. So it was called Human Nature, DNA, Race, and Identity, and it was in the Evolution, Ecology, and Environmental Biology department. And it kind of looks at like the psychology of us, and it did look into like how we interact with the environment. And it was interesting because like for me, I enjoyed it because I was learning like how we act, what we do, why do we do the things we do, like why are we burning the planet, you know, so I could use that to kind of tailor my own curriculum and you could all do the same thing.
I just want to add one more thing, pursuant to what Johan was saying. If by chance you're not able to push your way through like Johan did, which I didn't for some classes, you could still audit your classes. I did audit 2 interesting classes last semester, including one on documentary film producing, which, well, you know, you can judge me for that, but that's okay. And one on climate conflicts this semester. So if you can't get in, don't overpack your schedule by taking too many classes, but you can still audit it.
I think in the same line, don't overdo it. Like, don't take 10 electives because you want to do all classes. You have 3 semesters, you have 3 opportunities to take different classes. Don't put yourself a burden where you're like actually chasing something that you are not enjoying. I've seen friends and peers that are taking 5 electives, and I've been working also while doing the program, which I do not recommend. It's against your mental health sometimes, but New York is a really expensive city. But that kept me to the minimum electives that I have to take. And now in the summer, I'm not going to be in an internship, but I'm going to be auditing classes because I want to continue having that knowledge. So in a short line is just, if you don't have it this semester, just wait for the next semester. It will be fine.
That's great advice. Thank you. Related to something you touched on, not doing too much. It is a 1-year program, with 3 semesters, and so I wanted to just get a sense from you all. What's your advice for admitted students? How to make the most of your time here at Columbia? What's the 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you would give to admitted students? And we can start with
Ping-pong it back, okay. So we were actually just talking about this before this forum. We were saying how there's so many good resources and events and guest speakers, and there's so much that there's so many people that come to Columbia to speak because it's such a good institution, and we all have access to that. You just got to sign up for it, and you have to be able to find it. Sign up for newsletters, read the newsletters, read whatever people are emailing you. And there are such good speakers, talkers, often climate related, but sometimes not. There's the World Leaders Forum where you're hearing people talk from across the world, and it could be in quite intimate settings. And so I'm really glad that I'm signing up for these, but I still feel like I'm not signing up to enough. You could sign up to a few a week. So just use the resources that they have, especially when cool people come out here to speak.
Yeah, that was kind of my answer. But basically we have some pretty incredible people coming to speak. Right after this, I'm going, the Supreme Court case on affirmative action references the outgoing president of Colombia, President Bollinger. He's giving a talk on it in an hour, so I'll be going to that. Tomorrow I'll get to be at a talk with the mayor to the ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti. It's pretty incredible the number of people from all these different high-level professional backgrounds who come to speak here. So just talk to random people and sign up for random newsletters. Your email is going to be really difficult to get through, but I really think it's worth it.
Anyone with humanities background here? Okay, I guess this cohort will be easier for the professors, but I will say do not panic. It's an intense program. There's a lot of math involved. There's a lot of quant was my biggest nightmare, but my biggest accomplishment last semester. I never felt so smart in my life when I actually passed that class with a B, and for me it was an A+. So do not panic. Classes are difficult. We have the honor of having great professors who are really not only invested into the academics, but also the personal, and they are very supportive. Use Gerald, Alfred. Everyone here is always here to give you a hand. So that's my advice. Use the resources that you're paying for. Use the resources of Columbia. They have amazing network opportunities. So use that. Don't panic. You'll be fine. I'm living proof that somebody with no math background actually did very well last semester. And yeah, enjoy it. It's a very short program. I can't believe we're 5 weeks away from graduation, but it goes very fast.
I feel like Gerald already touched upon this in their segment, but I'm going to echo it again. Definitely, having Columbia on your resume opens up so many doors for you. So definitely utilize those connections, not just in Climate Society, but also in SEPA, SUMA, the Mailman School of Public Health. People want to talk to you and explain their profession, what they like about their job. And since this program is so short, I feel like the spring semester, literally, I woke up one day and it was here, and then I'm like, okay, I need to find what I'm doing after Columbia. But people will want to talk to you about their work, especially if you're still kind of unsure of where you want to go career-wise. And then the other thing I would say, non-academic related, enjoy New York City, while you can. This place is so cool. I know I'm West Coast represent, but I actually grew up here first. And it's so awesome being back. There's so much to do here. And even though there may be weekends where it's you're studying, you're preparing 3 group presentations, on the days where you can take a breather, go out and enjoy the city. And not just Manhattan, because it goes beyond Manhattan, but yeah.
I would agree. And also I would say, before we even get to the one-year course thing, rest now. I mean, I swear, I wish I had rested more before I'd come here, because it is so intense and it goes by so fast. Like Johan, at least he had some background in finance. I hate anything to do with money. I am not very good with numbers. And I passed, which is credit to the professors and credit to your cohort. I mean, I think the biggest strength for me, from my perspective, was the cohort that we had. There's something about trauma bonding that brings people together, okay? So help each other. I think you'll be fine. Throughout the time that you're here, as I think everybody mentioned, this is an amazing opportunity. You'll have so many speakers coming in, so many events that you can potentially attend, and it can be very overwhelming. If you can't attend all, don't beat yourself up over it. Attend the ones you can, and also take the time to rest, take the time to have fun. Just go out. I wish I had done more of that.
That's all great advice. There's still time. Spring is coming. It's going to be nice out. So I want to open it up to you, the audience, so that you can ask questions. I'm sure, you have some questions you might want to ask. So Alfred and Justine have microphones. So if you just raise your hand. Okay, right here in the middle on the yellow.
Thank you for coming down, taking the time today. So question for you, hi. For Johan, sorry if I pronounced it, but how did you balance having a job and doing this program? And it's sort of two-part, because I'm kind of in a similar position of trying to figure out, all right, have a career, been in New York for 10 years, the program is also only 1 year, right? So it's been referenced once or twice, but can you merit taking a break out of a career for a 1-year program? And is that kind of value trade-off worth it?
If you can afford to be in New York City for a year and not working, I will say definitely do it. I regret not being able to join the talks in the mornings or going to X panel because I have to go to work. I was very lucky that my employer was very, very, very flexible. I was doing consulting and my office was in Switzerland, so the hours worked perfectly fine for me, and I could take quant at 11 a.m. on a Monday. But I will say, and I remember when I was applying to this program, people were saying, do not work. It's an intensive program and blah, blah. I was like, I've been doing this and I'll be fine. But I mean, I'm here, but I will say it's intense. You will be giving up weekends. You will be going up late to bed. You're trading off things for the comfort of having that income. And also, I didn't want to take a break during my career because of that. But then I think that you can make it work. I know that is not the official advice, but I will say if your employer is flexible, I was doing 30 hours a week, sometimes 40 hours a week. I didn't have spring break because I was working. So I think that is most up to you to discuss that with your employer.
Thank you guys for your perspectives. Just quick question, is there anything that you guys wish you knew coming into the program? And then like advice you'd have for us as we're about to enter this program? And then the other thing is, did you have any like specific experiences that stood out to you in the program?
I wish I have done my summer session, my study guide that they gave you before you start. Do that. Do it, please, for your own sake, because quant will come and haunt you. And if you have not math background, you'll be crying at night. So I will say, I wish somebody told me this, but I wish I will actually listen. And experience, I wanted to echo what Aesha said. I think that this cohort, it's so united and so collaborative that we have a WhatsApp group that the messages ranges from studied guides to pet sitting and plans to go for dinner. And I think that we got really even though we have from different backgrounds and different interests, I think that we work together and we power through those finals and those final presentations. And I think that also is a huge impact and huge value for your program.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Definitely preparing, especially depending on your background. Like, I studied history and political science, so a lot of this information was like brutally new to me. But then also, I would say like lean into like the relationships in the cohort. Like, people come from all different backgrounds and have all different like forms of like education. So like, just because I didn't know how to do quanta didn't mean that someone else from the program couldn't help me. And then, I could help them in something else. And there's just some like really incredible people in the program and gonna be incredible in your program. So like, kind of lean into that, because that's one of the coolest parts about being here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wish someone, is anyone going straight from undergrad to this program or grad school? Yeah, I wish someone had told me about like the transition period between the two, because it was a lot tougher than I expected. I was lucky enough where a lot of my friends from undergrad do live in New York City or live in DC and are near, but I'm the only one of them that's still in school. And so on weekends where they're going out or inviting me to go out, I'm like, well, no, I have to study or do a quant lab or something like that. So it can get a little bit isolating at times, but that just means that like you have to really lean into like making these relationships and building your support system in the early months. And I guess like for me, like one of the first bonding experiences we had, a bunch of us went to a Yankee game on like weekend 2, and I didn't know anyone like that well, and it was a group of like 20 of us, and like I don't know, I consider you guys my friends, I guess, I don't know, but like but yeah, no, that was like a really cool experience, because like I realized like, oh, it's gonna be okay, because we're all in this together, and all of us can like, have fun, watch baseball every now and then, and enjoy the city. So yeah, definitely like establish that support system early, like lean into discomfort. I'm not the most outgoing person, but you will be fine.
Yeah, I think I would agree with all of that. The cohort is really a huge strength. Tap into it. Like Johan's. So one of our classmates, Memo, he literally took that time to teach us. Like, he held additional classes for us because he was very good. He was very comfortable with statistics. He understood what was happening, and he saw all of us flailing, quite literally. So, you will find people, and people are coming from such different perspectives, backgrounds. Is there anyone here who is coming back to school after a long time? Don't panic. I was panicking. I still am. I think I had forgotten how to be a student. It will take you probably a little bit. It will take you a beat to come back to it. It took me a long time. I think I spent the first semester just adjusting to the idea of being a student again. But you will be fine, I think. Everybody will be fine. And yes, the registration period, it's brutal, really, because there are different dates. Please keep on top of it. Therefore, different schools, the registrations open at different times. You will fall into wait lists. It's awful. That wait period is really bad. So just keep on top of the registration periods.
And I'll just add to that the program will send you information on that and registration deadlines, so we'll keep you apprised of deadlines that are coming up. And in addition to the support that you get from your cohort, the advice that I would give to you is lean into the support from the program staff, because we are all here to help you succeed. So are the faculty. So, there's an open door policy. If you're struggling in class, if you have personal issues, like, we're available talk to you, to troubleshoot, to connect you with resources and that sort of thing. So we'll repeat that at orientation, but just don't be shy about that. And I know there's a gentleman here in the middle with the sunglasses on your shirt who had a question. Do you still have the mic?
Yeah, I do.
Great.
I was just trying to jot down some stuff because I have maybe 10 questions. Yeah, my bad. So the one question I really want to ask is, were there any classes that changed your perspective on the work that you want to go and do in the future?
Good one. Anybody want to take it? Johan?
I can go. So in the fall semester, you're open to, is it 1 or 2 electives? I think it's just 1. But for my elective, I took an environmental justice course in I forget which school, is it SUMA? Well, it doesn't matter. It's another sustainability program. And in that class, you're diving into a lot about like how systemic racism has shaped how certain people experience the climate crisis now. But you're also, what was great about that class, it's like you bring in all these environmental nonprofits and NGOs and media people to show, and like basically the work that they're doing is not only connecting community members with the information about like what's going on with the world and like how climate change is like affecting them, but it's also like a lot of them were media companies that like found ways to translate all this data, all this graphs, all the programming in R that we're learning now into something that's more tangible and that people can understand. So I would say like that really shaped my perspective because it made me realize how important storytelling is in the climate crisis, because you're going to be talking to policymakers, CEOs, people who may not even like, I feel like that number is like dwindling, but people who may not even like understand what climate change is or like think that it's real. And I think that class really showed that like how important that line of work is, because especially like if you're working in policy, like sometimes you only have 2 minutes to talk to someone. And so like that class really showed like how do we get to like the main points? How do we make this a people-centered story? Because at the end of the day, it is like the most marginalized communities that are being affected the most.
I think for me, and I don't want to discourage anyone from like the quant and the math part, because actually that was a learning curve for me, and I think that changed the perspective on how important it is to understand those key topics and key concepts when you're working in climate. I've been working in climate for several years before, but I will take numbers for granted and be like, oh yeah, 35% of X territory is underwater. And I was like, okay, fine. And you move on. And then when you start actually going through and putting that into the labs and doing that in R, you start understanding way more what's behind that data, what's behind that data management. So that really changed my perspective on how important it is for us to understand and be able to communicate with different stakeholders, as you said. I think that we will be the ones who will be connecting the dots, and it's important for us to not be experts in this specific data management, because that's not my passion, but I need to understand what's going on in order for me not to be taking fake statements.
Yeah, one thing I'll add, there was never really like one thing that I always wanted to do, like one program I wanted to get into or one like profession. And there wasn't any class that made me feel like, okay, this is going to steer me that direction. But the program's so interdisciplinary that you will get to taste a bit of everything and see what you do like and what you don't like. And I kind of want to do everything, and this class has showed me that.
Yeah, I think we keep talking about quant because it has been very reaffirming to me. I was working as a journalist and I was working with a lot of data, but like Johan said, you approach it from a little bit of diffidence that, okay, I have to deal with the numbers, but I have lost the fear of numbers now. I can kind of deal with it. I think it's extraordinarily important to be able to do that. But it has not changed my perspective, but it has reaffirmed the areas that I want to work in going forward. And it has given, there is an opportunity, I'm still kind of taking the time to think over what I want to do next, because I realize that I can do more than just journalism. I can probably do a couple of things at the same time, and I think that's quite fascinating.
I think someone else in the audience had a question. You have a mic?
Yes, I do. It's nice to meet everybody. I'd like to say hi, but I'm curious if any of you guys have any experience with like research on campus, or if you know people who have had research experience on campus, and kind of, what you think of that, if you've had any experience, anything like that.
So I work on this project at the law school. So there's this thing called the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law. Basically, this really rich guy named Sabin gives the school a lot of money to fight climate change, which is kind of cool. But basically, so I work on this project called the Renewable Energy Legal Defense Initiative. So what we do is, so I just do a lot of research against misinformation that it's local opposition that kind of stops the deployment of renewable energy and transmission projects. So I'm doing all this research on the misinformation and how to counter it, and then I work for this lawyer, and he's filing amicus briefs to try to persuade the local governments to push for these renewable energy projects. It's definitely been a big time commitment, but I also think it's just been very worthwhile.
Because I had extra time during my semester, I did a fellowship with the Columbia for Sustainable Investing with the law school as well. And we're doing a study on how banks can approach net zero. And it was a big study. It was, I will say, use those connections, use those, the program, the staff will send you a list of opportunities that you will have at the beginning of the semester, the GRAs, and then you apply to those, and then if you get selected, you actually get compensated for that, but you also have the research background. I have been considering going for a PhD, so I was like, I wanted to do this as part of my portfolio, and it was probably one of the best experiences I had.
Yeah, so I'm a GRA this semester at the Center for Sustainable Futures, which is a sustainability center based out of Teachers College. So my research really focuses on the intersection between climate change education and education policy in New York City. And so I really like the work that I'm doing, because it is very hands-on. I'm learning how to use Strata, and most of my prior research experiences, the stats part has been done for me, and I just make the graphs. But I'm also doing, where it's like this position, I'm doing a bit of both, where it's like learning how to do the analysis through this program, and then also finding a way, and this is where the storytelling part comes in again, because I'm making a report for sustainability coordinators and teachers and people at the Department of Education who may not have the stats background or the climate change education background. So it's kind of fun, because it's like I'm writing a report for if I was turning in for a class and the professor had a PhD and their life's work as data, and now I'm okay, well, how can I condense this more into something that can actually affect change? And the really cool part about this is it's deadline's coming up, but it is something that the Department of Education will read at the end, and it is cool to be able to add oh, I was an author on this little report that I submitted to the New York Department of Education, which is only the #1 largest education thing, state department education thing in the country. No big deal. I also get to talk about that, and I really like my advisor, who also is connecting me with people who do this work. So yeah, it's been a really good experience.
Yeah, there are a limited number of graduate research assistantships, the GRA positions every year, so you'll hear about those. And then there are also internships available through the climate school's different centers that run for the full year. So you'll want to pay attention in the fall as the opportunities come out, and you can apply to as many as you're interested in, and we encourage that.
And it's also paid.
Yes.
I would also real quick recommend to look early, even early August, just kind of look at newsletters and stuff for different internships, just get the applications rolling before your workload really starts to build up.
We have a question right over here.
Hi, thank you for your time today. So my question was, how are the classes like? Do they start really early, and are they recorded so you can see it later on? And how much you had to study for let's say certain classes? Are they mainly reading and writing, or memorize and just take the test, things like that?
There isn't as much memorizing. I don't think they care about that. I think that's irrelevant in today's world anyway. Anything you want to know, you can Google. But there is a lot of writing involved for different classes. But it really depends on what you're taking, I guess. For quant, for example, there won't be as much writing, but there will be a lot of math work. For dynamics, again, there'll be a lot of work related to formulas, physics, things like that. So it kind of depends on what classes you're taking.
Yeah, I would say my experience is like during the week, most of my assignments are reading based, and like at least for like my electives, I like the readings that I'm doing. I find them interesting, and they will like help in like your career like later on. When like finals, midterms like rolls around, I feel like my experience has been mainly like group presentations or like a final project, but like most of them are like collaborative. So it's instead of like maybe the deliverable is like a 15-page paper, but then there's 3 of you working on a 15-page paper. And this as far as exams go, I've only had 2 exams this semester. Fall semester, I didn't have any. And one of them is take home. So like the professor like doesn't want you like memorizing everything for this 2-hour period on this specific day. They really want you to soak in the information.
Yeah, I think you have all shapes and colors when it comes to classes because you can make your own program at some point as well. So I've been in classes where we have been 5 of us, and I have classes where we have been 35, 40 plus. So I think that the cool thing is that the staff and the professors and the TAs are always willing to help and always willing to work with you. And if you don't grasp a concept, or if you actually didn't do that well in one assignment, you can actually talk to your professor and see, because at the end they want you to succeed and they want you to be a good representative of Colombia when you go for job hunting.
Yeah, to echo like all different shapes and sizes, I think one thing that's really unique about this program in contrast to like the rest of Columbia is how much we're able to tap into the different schools, take classes at Mailman or the law school with SIPA, and a lot of other Columbia students don't really have that privilege. But then like in terms of like specifics like Zoom, it's kind of a case by case. Sometimes like they really know what they're doing in terms of like having everything perfectly recorded and uploaded. Other times it's like, the professor walks away and then you can't really hear what they're talking about when you're watching on Zoom. So it's definitely just a case by case. Like every classroom is different, but I think that's like one of the strongest parts about this program.
Yeah, I was actually kind of scared getting into this because I thought it was going to be a lot harder, and I don't think it's as hard as I thought it was. Maybe that's because I thought it was going to be so hard. Honestly, it just sort of seems like an extension of my like undergrad, but again, my undergrad was in environmental studies, so it's not too different. There's not many exams. I hate exams, so I've been lucky that it's mostly group projects. It's mostly like some essays, some like just more like projects and smaller things that make your grade. And for me, that like is so much better than taking exams. We have our law classes, just 1 exam, and that's it. But that's the only, like, unless you're going to take law classes, I think most classes are not like that.
In general,
I would also say don't depend too much on the recorded classes, because I don't know, I found more value in attending the classes themselves.
Yeah, and I'd say generally your core classes will be in person. There are occasions where, if there's COVID sickness, a course will need to be recorded. Electives may vary a little bit, but generally you can expect to be in person for your core classes.
I had one question that was a little bit different. I was just curious where each of you live in New York, and also do a lot of people commute from very far away in the program? What kind of neighborhoods are people coming from and getting to school? Is it hard to commute?
So I live further than a lot of people, and I live north. I found a room on like Facebook, and my rent is so cheap. Like honestly, I'll just tell you, I'm paying $750 a month for my room. I mean, it's tiny, it's so small, but like I can fit a bed in there and like get my clothes in, and I've got some cool housemates. I'm up on 145th, but I'm right by a train station, so I just take a train down. I don't think it's like a bad neighborhood. It's okay. It's near a train station. I can easily get downtown. I can easily get to school. I don't mind it.
I live, it's right here on Claremont Avenue, so it's basically like geographic. So there's the Morningside campus, which is on 116th Street. This is on 125th, so I kind of live like halfway between. And it's literally like right there, right next to like the Riverside Church. And so I like that because I could walk back and forth to either campus, and so whenever there's an event, like I could just like I could go back to my apartment, or I could go to the event, or I could go to class. It is relatively cheap. It's not that cheap, but it is New York, so also not whatever. But yeah, I definitely prefer and am glad that I am living very close to campus.
I think I'm like halfway through. I'm in Spanish Harlem, so it takes me 40 minutes walking, 25 minutes by bus, door to door. Something that I wish I knew before starting the program is where to find that apartment because it's very cheap. But I think that if you're close enough that you can walk home and if it's warm or you can take the bus, I think it's fine.
So I live at International House, which is also on Claremont Avenue. Half of it is just like standard dorm living where it's like singles, communal showers, whatever. And then the other half is like apartments. I applied for, you can get like a group apartment with roommates or you can get a single apartment. By the time that I had applied, the single apartments were gone. So I'm just in a dorm. Gets like not the biggest room that I've ever had, but I was also an RA in college, and so those were the rooms that I had to deal with. So I'm used to it. But you also have there's a dining hall in my building. I have a gym. I have study spaces, so the amenities are really nice. And you don't have to be an international student to apply. Like there are plenty of people who are from the States, including myself. I applied to. I'm not sure if you have the option to apply to Columbia Housing, but definitely do not put all of your plans writing on that because grad housing is very limited. I think I only know one person from our program who actually got it. In terms of commuting, I do know someone who commutes every day from Long Island. So there are people who are not just living, and people who commute from Brooklyn. So people really are coming from all over the place.
For me, as an international student, finding a house in New York is a whole other kind of mess. I don't wish it on anyone. I live relatively close by. I live in West Harlem. It takes me the same time to walk or take the subway, so I mostly walk. I got lucky in that sense, but there are lots of people in the cohort who are traveling from Queens, from Bronx. I don't think anybody's traveling from Jersey.
But somebody's traveling from Connecticut.
Oh yeah, somebody's traveling from Connecticut.
Yeah, it's not me. But also tap into this cohort because we're going to be moving to other cities, other places. So also happy Gerald can also put the connections, and I'm sure a lot of apartments will come available on tricks and
apply to International House. You'll get an apartment if you apply now. Don't wait until May like I did.
Thank you for that. The good thing is New York has a great transit system, so you can get pretty much to any of the boroughs by train and bus. I think we'll take one more question, and then we will transition right here.
Hey folks, thanks again for taking your precious time to be here to break this down because it's really helpful. My question along the lines of kind of, I guess, lifestyle or kind of course layout is if you folks can briefly walk us through what your weekly schedules are like, what hours are you between, classes, how many hours are you studying, are you kind of eating while you're studying, is it kind of that whole thing, because similar to some of us, I've been here for about 12 years, kind of have my career, and so I'm just like, how do I squeeze this in or not, right? So just trying to figure out in terms of how are some of you folks shaking out your schedules in that day-to-day? It sounds like weekends aren't as fun, so that was pretty clear. But if you can share any of the details in terms of what your schedules look like during the weekdays.
Yeah, I can start. So actual class time isn't that much. You're not in class very often. You have a lot of time not in class. This semester I'm taking 2 classes that start at 6 and finish at 8. So pretty late classes, you can find a way to fit your schedule, maybe. You're obviously spending more time outside of class than you are in class studying, so there is often a lot of reading, sort of homework, stuff to study for. I like to go into libraries, I like to leave my tiny room to study, or coffee shops. You will be pretty busy. I think it, again, depends on how you study. If you end up not studying, you'll struggle. But you can, it isn't atrocious. It really isn't. It's not as bad as maybe you might be thinking.
Yeah, it's definitely, so for me, like this semester, I have classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so I don't have anything Thursdays or Fridays, and so I generally take that time. I'm working 2 internships right now, which isn't the greatest idea in the world, but whatever. But, so I could spend a lot of Thursdays and Fridays, and then, Saturdays and Sundays focusing on that, and then also just attending like other lectures and events on campus. But simultaneously, like you do have that flexibility where like you don't need to take an internship and you don't need to go to these events. I strongly recommend it, but it's also like you're still kind of in control in terms of like where you prioritize your time.
So the first semester I was working full time, but I was managing my own hours. So I could take quant at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday and then take a break for 2 hours and then go to lab. So I was like just doing doing a project so I can just manage my own time. And this semester, when I was negotiating my new job, I told them that I was taking Mondays afternoons off because I have 2 classes back to back, and then I'm taking classes from 6 to 8, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Yeah.
Monday, a lot of my classes this semester are like only once a week for like 2.5, 3 hours. So I have Fridays off this semester. So Monday through Thursday, I would say like I'm going to class, I'm doing my research, which is kind of you log your hours at the end of the week, but it really is like on your own time type deal. And then on the weekends, I made a goal for myself, like New Year's resolution, whatever. I allocated like one day where I do go out and enjoy the city and I don't touch any of the work that I have to do. And then in terms of like eating, because it's like I don't know why, maybe it's just an undergrad thing. I do see people at Columbia who will they'll have a book open and they're eating and they're walking to class. I don't do that. Don't do that. I've gotten a meal plan, which makes it easier to get food, and I do have time to eat meals in between classes. So it's definitely different from undergrad, because I feel like there were definitely some days where it's like, okay, I'm gonna eat a big breakfast and then I'm not gonna see a dining hall until like 5 p.m. It's not like that here. So yeah, you definitely have time it's like you have to allocate time for classes and studying, but it does not take over your whole life while you're living here.
It's okay. I know we have made it sound really horrible. It's not that bad. It's really not. And like you, I came back to the school after 13 years of working. That takes a beat, but you adjust. I mean, even I did not spend that much time. I think I spent more time stressing over things. I stressed a lot. But it's fine. It like Victoria said, that you're not going to be eating while you're studying. It's not that hectic. Also, again, the beauty of designing your own courses means that there are people in our class who have class only 3 days a week, which is pretty great. I think you have an extended weekend. It's okay. I mean, it's fine.
A lot of meal prepping. That's a trick. Meal prepping.
Yeah, I'm not doing a research position. I'm also not doing an internship, and I think I have like a good bit of time. Like, if I were doing those positions, I think my grades might be hit, but instead I'm doing decent with grades and I have time on my hands. So, and you still get to do research in your classes. There's still things you're going to gain from this project or from the program without actually having to go out of your way to do the internships if you don't want to.
Thank you. And I'll just add that the program definitely emphasizes wellness. We want you guys to take care of yourselves while you're here, while you're studying. We organize a lot of social activities for you to get together and kind of, just not worry about studying, but connect with each other. So we want you to do that as well while you're studying. Thank you so much to our panelists. And we'll turn it over to the faculty panel now.